Busiam Bekaya, a year President John Mahama, Emma say a year E Levey, tax that E Levey, any is no, obe year for, and they was signed, say this E Levey, any taxes, Nina, I war, mobile money, so near their day, bank transfer, near yin free, and they was signed, year free. Banks ni nyinaa send text messages across me kura me nsa ka bi me de chire ni anya message from the central bank, which is Bank of Ghana Commercial Bank. I send a message say e levy and sa taxes ni nyinaa and the presidency yin free ho o ma circulate a obia o customer wo GCB bia no when your messages be I just say E Levey yetwam.
President John Dramani Mahama has fulfilled his promise on some major taxes to be repealed by assenting to a set of bills that abolished the betting tax, e-levy, and the emissions tax. At a signing ceremony in Accra, the president said his administration is people-driven and will fulfill all promises made in the interest of Ghanaians.
Emissions Levy Repeal Act 2025, emissions levy is gone. This is the earmark funds capping and realignment bill. This is the bill that caps the GET fund and national health insurance levy and moves those resources into the consolidated fund. We promise that we'll take the capping off, we'll uncap them. And so this bill uncaps the GET fund and the national health insurance levy. So the earmark funds capping and realignment amendment bill has been assented to.
Abusia mama kwa baba na nyina TV so. Enti momienko ne enko join Alfred Okansi abra na all cheche mu hawa E Levy na betting tax and other taxes na Mahama share say yebe abolish no. Ame ode mu cheche mu ene emu pense mu eba. Let's go join Alfred how he deliberates and delve into the abolition of the e-levy and the other taxes, the betting tax and then others. Let's go join Alfred in his discussions.
Effective midnight tonight, just about some 2 hours away from now, the implementation of the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, ceases. Following President John Dramani Mahama's assent to some revenue bills, including the repeal of the e-levy. We've got more for you, and a development that is just coming through just about an hour ago before we came on air. There's a development to this from the GRA, which we'll put out shortly. But earlier today, the President, John Dramani Mahama, has fulfilled his promise on some major taxes to be repealed by assenting to a set of bills to abolish the betting tax, e-levy, and the emission tax, although the emission tax was not implemented because of the lack of calibration of the systems of the Driver Vehicle License Authority, DVLA, that collection entity. But at the signing ceremony earlier today, the president said his administration is people-driven and will fulfill all promises made in the interest of the Ghanaian people.
This is the electronic transfer levy repeal bill. That's the famous e-levy bill. I'll proceed to sign it. Okay, I've just given assent to the repeal of the famous e-levy bill. Now, this is the Income Tax Amendment Bill 2025 to remove withholding tax on winnings from lottery, betting, and games of chance. This is the famous betting tax repeal bill. And so I'll assent to it, 2nd April 2025. So betting tax is gone. Now, this is the emissions tax repeal bill. So, Emissions Levy Repeal Act 2025, Emissions Levy is gone. This is the Earmark Funds Capping and Realignment Bill. This is the bill that caps the GET Fund and National Health Insurance Levy and moves those resources into the consolidated fund. We promise that we'll take the capping off, we'll uncap them. And so this bill uncaps the GET Fund and the National Health Insurance Levy. So the Earmark Funds Capping and Realignment Amendment Bill has been assented to. So it means GET Fund and NHIL will receive the full amount of their levies. Promises delivered.
Well, that's President John Dramani Mahama. They hear him talk about promises delivered, because all the key promises that they made ahead of the 2024 election was the repeal of the e-levy betting tax as well, abolishing them. He was not the only one who made that promise. The flag bearer of the MPP, Dr. Mahmoud Mabia, also made that promise. President Mahama has been elected as president, and he had that obligation to fulfill that promise to the Ghanaian people. And this is what happened today with that signing ceremony that you just saw. But before we came on air, this notice came from the Ghana Revenue Authority, because a number of you were asking, after the signing ceremony, you were expecting that right there, when you do any mobile money transaction, you wouldn't see any e-levy application or e-levy taking from your transaction. But this is what would give effect to what happened earlier today. The Ghana Revenue Authority Electronic Transfer Management and Assurance System, that's ELMAS, will automatically return, quote, a no charge, unquote, on all transactions posted to it by entities from midnight. So after this signing ceremony today, by midnight today, according to this statement that came through a few minutes ago from the Ghana Revenue Authority, their system, the ELMA system, will automatically return a no charge on all the transactions posted to it by entities. Also, the entities they are talking about, the mobile telecommunications companies, who are also the ones who, through this system, charge for and on behalf of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Now, the charging entities must cease applying the 1% e-levy from midnight on all their channels. Because if you recall, one of the mobile companies' managing director had earlier today indicated that just the signing ceremony was not enough. There had to be systems and structures put in place, and then also a directive from the GRA for them to halt the collection. So this is what has happened. So all these charging entities must cease applying the e-levy, that's even the financial institutions as well, from midnight on all their channels. Now, charging entities must immediately process refunds for any e-levy amounts deducted from customers effective today, 2nd April 2025. Entities are to establish an expedited refund process to handle such cases promptly and maintain proper documentation of all refund processed. Reports of such refunds must be submitted to the GRA. Now, the fundamental question that we ask when we receive this statement, which we're going to be engaging the GRA on from tomorrow to get some clarity, is that this refund But point 3, that talks about a refund, immediate processes to refund for any e-levy amount deducted from customers effective today. Is it from the time that the president assented to these bills? That was earlier today. So right from the morning after the signing ceremony, any transaction that took place and e-levy collected means people should be expecting a refund, or after midnight of today. So yeah, a number of you were asking those questions on social media. Trust that we will stay on this and get some clarity from the Ghana Revenue Authority. But from the understanding that we got, based on the earlier indication, was from midnight. But then again, today is 2nd April 2025. So we'll find out whether this is going to take effect after the midnight of today. And then the point 4 also brings another layer of clarity to what's going to happen. The charging entities are to take the necessary steps to file and pay all outstanding e-levy charged and collected on all transactions that occurred before 2nd April, before today, 2025. All charging entities have to take the steps to file and pay all the outstanding e-levy charges and also the ones collected on all transactions before today, for effective reconciliation and in accordance with Section 33A of the Revenue Administration Act 2016, Act 915 as amended. Entities must continue to post all electronic transfer transactions to that system that the GRA has until further directives are provided. So this is also to the entities. They must maintain electronic transfer records for at least 6 years, as stipulated in Section 27.3 of the Revenue Administration Act. All of this is administrative directives to the various entities that were charging and collecting the e-levy for and on behalf of the Ghana Revenue Authority. But the most important element in the news in this, for all of you watching, is that effective midnight today, the e-levy is off the books, and the electronic transfer levy management assurance system will automatically return a no charge on all transactions. And we're going to put that on the screen right now. And if you go on our Facebook page, also at 3news.com, you'll find the details of it. There are other bills as well. It's not just the e-levy that was accented to by the president today, but there were other bills as well. We have the emissions levy that was also ascended to you. You saw the president lift that file. Even though this was not implemented, there was a promise to repeal it or abolish it, so it had to be done. And it's off our books now. And then we had the Income Tax Amendment Bill 2025, the Revenue Administration Amendment Bill as well, and then the Value Added Tax Amendment Bill 2025. Some of that had the COVID-19 levy as well. A number of you are asking questions about that. You heard the finance minister, when I sat with him some 3 weeks ago, indicate that there's going to be some stakeholder engagements, but it will be abolished as promised. We'll find out a bit more detail as to when exactly that's going to be done. But Growth and Sustainability Levy Amendment Bill 2025 as well has been assented to. You recall the Chamber of Mines raised concerns about this being increased to 3%. Then again, government indicated that the economy, they need money to fix the economy and then also do what has been enshrined in that particular budget as was presented by the finance minister earlier in the month of March. But a few people who have been sharing their thoughts on this, but quickly bring in Professor Lord Mensah. He is an associate professor at the University of Ghana Business School. Joining us with his thoughts on this. Professor Lord Mensah, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. I mean, promise delivered, as you saw the president there. And how would this decision stimulate economic growth? You know, that objective that the finance minister and the president expect. How is this going to happen from what you said?
Yeah, so we may have to look at it from different channels. In terms of consumption, and then in terms of savings that citizens can make out of the the scrapping of the e-levy. We are also looking at it from the perspective of financial inclusion, which has to do with encouraging people to use the electronic platform so that they can be part of the financial network of the economy. So in one way or the other, we are looking at boosting aggregate savings, and in the end, monies will be available to move to other sectors of the economy. In terms of consumption, once, you have this e-levy scrapped, obviously, monies available for electronic transactions are going to increase, and that will also enhance people to consume more. And through that, there's going to be corresponding increase in production. And once production increases, it builds up into the profit making, and by so doing, government gets this deferred e-levy tax from the profit that industries and businesses are going to make from increasing consumption. So from where I sit, it's not a complete loss in this economic space, but then it's rather more or less a deferment in taxes that are supposed to be collected, and then in future tends to gain from the government. Government tends to gain from it through increase in consumption and productivity within the economy, and then also enhancing financial inclusion as far as the electronic space is concerned. So the economy is going to benefit from it through these various channels: one, consumption; two, savings; and then three, financial inclusion.
Right. But I want to find out from you, there's one decision, in fact, that has been assented to today, the Growth and Sustainability Levy, that would have the mining and quarrying sector pay a little more to benefit the country in terms of this levy. You had the Chamber of Mines not too happy about it, but they had some engagement with the Finance Ministry. Beyond today, what form of engagement would you expect so as to ensure that the sector is on board and also buying into the government's objective of raking in more revenue for the greater good of the economy?
Yeah, very, very important. And I understand where the government is coming from. Government has, assessed the economy, and they found, the active part of the economy, and throwing the taxes, increment in those sectors. We have, mining and quarrying driving our GDP growth over the past years. And you ask yourself, what is the economic inclusion of the mining and quarrying, i.e. in terms of job creation and other things in the country? So the minister, if you read the budget very well, gave some statistics, and he indicated that there's what we call natural resource rent, and that's the difference between revenue generated from a natural resource and then the cost of tapping into that natural. And in our country, is hitting around 14% to GDP. That is more or less a profit that the mining companies are making. But then he says that, look, with this profit that mining companies are making, if you look at what we are generating or as a revenue from the mining companies, we get only 1% of our GDP. So that means that we can increase, the natural resource rent, and then move it from, we can increase the revenue from 1% to about 3%. And that is why he drew in, some taxes there. And I believe that has to do with engagement. It's a policy. Obviously, once you throw in a policy, you expect that companies that have been making exorbitant profit will receive it with a shock. And so it has to do with engagement and negotiations. And I'm happy the minister gave a range in the budget. He said between 1% and 3%. Yeah. So whatever terms, both the government and then the Chamber of Commerce, as far as the mining, industry is concerned, come to a point.
Okay.
It should be between that 1% to 10%. So negotiation is important.
I get the point, but there's one that I want us to touch on very quickly. If you look at, even when the e-levy was in place and being collected and implemented, based on the Bank of Ghana's data, the volumes of mobile money transactions kept increasing appreciably over the period. And also the value of the mobile money transactions kept increasing over time, even when the e-levy was being implemented. Now the decision has been taken to abolish. What mechanism should be put in place to ensure that real value and benefit is realized from this decision to abolish the e-levy going forward?
Yeah, so now we may have to look at the difference between the intervention of removing the e-levy and how, the trajectory of growth in mobile money transactions are going to behave. So now we may have to, as researchers, we may have to track, to get to know the impact of this new, the removal of the e-levy, how it has impacted on volumes of, trade from now on. And I believe that it's going to enhance, volumes of trade. And once you have, because everybody that is engaging in any transaction or one way or the other, once there's a levy, they think twice before they move on the platform. And I can tell you that with the removal of the, e-levy, the transactions below the hundreds and the 500, below the hundreds and the 50s and all those are now going to gain grounds. And we're going to see more transactions at hinterlands and all those places that their income levels are low. So the volumes are going to go up and it will be more inclusive. You see, we measure volumes of increase in mobile money transactions, but the question is, have we ever thought of the widespread or in terms of concentrations, whether the transactions are mainly within Accra or it extends into our hinterland? So if we do a research and we tap into, what is going to happen and get to know that, maybe village to village transaction has improved as a result of this intervention, then we can conclude that, there is a benefit when it comes to the removal of the e-levy. And I know for sure, I can infer that, there's going to be an improvement when it comes to, this type of transactions.
Professor Lord Benson, I appreciate you for this, and thank you so much for, as always, joining us here on Ghana Tonight.